In this video, I wanted to go over the basics of unique lock. Now, this is another way that you can lock and unlock your code. Recently, we started learning about multi-threading in C++, and we started learning about locks. So whenever you're writing code that can have a race condition that is being used in multiple threads, you want to lock and unlock your code. But what we learned is that using a lock and an unlock can lead to some problems because, say the code ended up throwing an error, then you need to figure out how to lock the mutex the correct way in that situation. And it's basically just a little bit annoying to handle the mutex lock and unlock. That's why we use the C++ feature lockguard, which uses the principle of RAII. Whenever you write code like this, it locks immediately as soon as you write that code, and as this lockguard is going out of scope, it automatically unlocks the mutex so that you as the programmer don't have to worry about it, whether it ends, at the end of this for loop or whether it crashes and you still want to unlock it. Whatever the case is, the lockguard will handle that situation. But there are some situations where you want more control over how the mutex gets locked and unlocked, and that is when you would need to use a unique lock. Now, a unique lock provides three main things that you can do. The first is that you can defer locking it as soon as you create the unique lock. In this case, we've got the std lockguard here. But what this does is that it automatically locks at this line of code. So if I write a unique lock like this, and let's name it aptly ulock1, we can pass in std defer lock. Like so. This creates the ulock, but it does not lock this mutex immediately. So what you're going to have to do is write something like ulock1.lock. Right before the actual data race could happen, you want to lock it. And of course, when it goes out of scope, it's going to automatically unlock it. So if you had some code where you're doing some sort of data processing and you wanted to create the lock beforehand and then lock it at some other point for some reason, that's where that's useful. But as I pointed out here, this might not be something that you as a programmer generally tend to use, just because I think it's kind of one of those advanced features where it's helpful for folks that create complex C++ libraries, but as a general programmer, I don't really know if it's something that you're going to use. So what's really something that you're going to may want to use is to lock and unlock arbitrarily in the code. Now, this is something that actually can be useful. Let's take a quick look at what manually locking and unlocking looks like. So what you can do is you can write unlock like this. When you do a lockguard, it's only going to unlock at the end of this scope. Basically, as this is going out of scope, it's going to unlock. But sometimes you may want to unlock before it goes out of scope because you know that there's going to be some sort of data processing that is not going to have a race condition, right? Maybe it's some sort of user input that you're waiting for, or maybe like in this specific scenario, you're just wasting time for about 100 milliseconds, right? Whatever the case is, there may be situations where you need to lock and unlock manually, right? And maybe the case is that after this is done, you want to actually lock it again, like this, right? Maybe you want to lock it again. And basically, unique lock just provides you the optionality to unlock and lock and unlock and lock however you see fit. Suppose you ended up, forgetting to unlock it right over here. At the end of the scope, it's going to unlock it by default. And we can confirm this just by going to unique lock and going to the destructor. You could see here that in unique lock, as long as it still owns it, it's going to unlock it. So that's kind of what the unique lock does. In this case, the code that I had was like this. What you're going to notice is that we create the unique lock, we increment the data, we print the variable, and then we unlock, and then we wait. In that wait time, the OS can schedule the second thread, right? And that's what's happening here. In the 100 millisecond wait time, because we use the unique thread and we said, hey, look, we know how this program is going to work. So I'm going to try to get the OS to schedule stuff so that we're not wasting time, right? You can see it here that this is thread ID 1, this is thread ID 2, this is thread ID 1, it's got that 98A, and then this one's got that 992. So 98A, 992. Now, it's not always going to be as, nice as this sort of interleaving. So if I run it again, we might see something different. So I ran the program again, and here we could see the interleaving is a little bit different in that, in this case, it looks like, we've got the F9 for here and then the F11, F11. In this case, this thread just ended up running 2 times in a row, and then, the OS decided to schedule this other one here. The point is that by having this unique lock, you as a programmer have more control over when something gets locked or unlocked. And yeah, that's all I want to talk about in this video, which is the basics of unique lock, how it's different from lock guard, and some of the things that you could do with it. If you're not familiar with like how you use this in production, there are a couple uses for it, like if you're say creating a producer consumer thread, or if you're creating a thread pool, you may use a unique lock, and we can go over those in the next video. But yeah, that's all I want to talk about in this video. If you've made it this far, hit the like button and consider subscribing for more random C++ deep dives just like this. And if you want to sponsor the channel, just send me an email. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.